One of the other things that they did in this movie was kind of trying to figure out the look of everything, which the look of the movie is amazing. It's beautiful. They used what they called the 70-30 rule, and they also use that for the music, but we'll be getting to that a little bit later. So they wanted the look of everything to be 30% sci-fi and 70% traditional, or basically what those things should usually look like. For instance, like the ship. It's like a ship with a mast, a very traditional, can't think of the word, like classical ship. But they put in things like the artificial gravity, laser cannons. So you look at it and you're like, yeah, this is something different. It's something interesting, because you're taking two different ideas and kind of meshing them together, because they could have gone in a totally different direction, like the Star Wars direction, for instance, where all ships are basically like metal, space is very cold. A lot of that is taken out of the equation, and it makes it very amazing, fantastical, I guess.
I think what also helps with the idea of space not being as cold is the artistic style. Because when you watch it, there's a lot of vibrant colors and like blue sky, and even the animals and creatures that they involve. Like you can see like these space whales just flying through, and you're like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the space whales are super cool.
And I think it's really interesting that they went that direction, because like you said, they were mixing two of these ideas together, and one being sci-fi but one being realistic.
Yeah, no, like I think something that they did really cool is they showed kind of scientific phenomenons and stuff. So there's a moment in the movie where Jim and the captain, John Silver, go on the little ship, and they go on their own little adventure together, just off on their own, and they ride behind like the tail of this comet, and they're in this ice shower, and it plays like the super cool, I think it's when it's playing I'm Still Here, and it's just this really cool like montage of his life now and his life before. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Something else that people don't realize is how much work these animators did, because like you were saying, drawing frame by frame, but also making these characters imbued with emotion, and also that the characters possessed some kind of personality. You could really tell by the way that they talked, the way that they looked, the way that they acted, the kind of person that they are. For instance, with John Silver, something that's really interesting is they focused actually less on the idea of John Silver from Treasure Planet, and more on the way how the voice actor they chose talked, because he kind of talked out of the side of his mouth. And they just really loved just like how this person was, so they actually focused it more on this cast member, which I think is a really cool thing that they did there. But one of the animators on this was actually Glenn Keane, or he was a supervisor over the animators for John Silver, and I think that's really cool because he worked on like Tarzan. Something else that people don't really know a lot about in animation, especially with traditional animation, is that they would make what they called character maquettes, and I hope that's how you pronounce it. But basically what they are is the little action figures, or these little models that character sculptors would sculpt. And you could see the proportions of the character, how tall they are, how lean they are, maybe their face a little bit. And you could look at that, and animators could look at that and draw the character from that and make sure that they're focusing on making him look the same and staying on model. Because if he didn't stay on model, I've animated before, and when something doesn't stay on model, it's like, oh wow, his hand's a lot bigger at the end of this than it was at the beginning, and it just doesn't look very professional. So that's one thing that they used to help with that.
And coming from a film perspective, there's tons of people, tons of animators, each animating potentially the same scene. And so if you have someone mess up, it's going to look super wonky, and it's just going to take the viewer out of the experience. And especially when you're dealing with like humans, people recognize the deformalities. I'm not sure if that's the correct word. When something's wrong, the brain realizes it, and that's when we start reaching into like the uncanny valley, which you probably don't come across when it comes to animating, like especially at this style. But yeah, when people recognize, and they might not be able to necessarily point it out, but like the brain realizes it, just disconnects the viewer from what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you brought up that was really cool, is that experience. And I think this movie really, if you give it a chance, it is an experience. You really get involved in this world, involved in these characters and their lives. They made it so much more than what the book was, or I'm not saying the book is bad. The book is amazing, and I haven't read the whole book. I'm sorry, But the parts that I've read, they're amazing, and I've always loved the story of Treasure Island, and they brought it into this whole new world and this whole new realm and this whole new experience.